Bader Institute for Nonprofit Management with the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Bryce is an experienced manager with a history of working in nonprofit organizational management and capacity building. Bryce oversees the community outreach programming for Helen Bader Institute. In addition, he serves as the department manager of the Department of Public and Nonprofit Administration at UW-M. He holds a Master of Science in Nonprofit Management and Leadership and a Bachelor of Arts in Theater Studies, both from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And joining him today is Dan Folkman. Dan is one of our members. He's an Associate Professor Emeritus with the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and he is the co-founder of Wisconsin Video Hub. And Dan describes himself as an activist scholar. He taught graduate and undergraduate classes on community organizing and adult continuing education. Upon retiring in 2011, Dr. Folkman became an activist videographer, recording a wide range of community programs on public policy issues. Currently, he is working on a series of civic-oriented discussions between red and blue partisans. The goal is to demonstrate that the severe political divide that is creating partisan deadlock can be crossed and produce productive dialogue on newly found common ground. The long-term goal is to see if the participants can frame public policy positions and take an advocacy position from their unique bipartisan membership. So, please welcome Dan Folkman and Bryce Lord.
Bear with me for a minute while we deal with technical issues here. How's everybody doing? I heard you had quite a riot last night. There we are. So, as Mary said, my name is Bryce Lord, and I don't know if the mic is useful enough, but I'm actually from UW-Milwaukee. I do have to clarify that, that's all right. Personal pride, Panther pride, right? I was asked to speak about the connection between community media and nonprofit organizations as a way to sort of help and reach out to community organizations as a way to kind of bolster that part of our society. So let's see how we're gonna do this. There we are, that's me. My contact information there, if anybody cares. Maybe once we're done, we'll decide that. But before we get started, I wanted to clarify a little bit about the Helen Bader Institute. Normally I stand off to the side.
Do you want a wireless microphone?
Sure. Anyway, the Helen Bader Institute has actually been around 20 years. This is our 20th anniversary. We're very excited about that. We are what they call an academic research center focusing on nonprofit organizations. We were developed at a request by foundations in the Milwaukee area to help build up the capacity and I'm just going to turn that off. And overall sustainability of the nonprofit sector here. Long story. But anyway, we do that in 3 different areas. We have graduate education. We have one of only 12 accredited programs in nonprofit studies in the world, in Wisconsin, who would have thought. We also do a lot of research into nonprofits, not just locally, but nationally, internationally, actually. A little bit more about that in a moment. And we do a lot of community support, providing tools and resources and other educational offerings to help bring up the capacity of organizations. I should probably just stand over here.
Do you want me to just forward them for you?
Sure, if you wouldn't mind. We don't have a clicker?
No.
Oh, well, I would have brought my own. That's our social media stuff. I just always stick it in there in case anybody cares. But let's talk a little bit of information about the Wisconsin nonprofit sector so we have a base understanding of what it is we're talking about. First of all, if you didn't know, there are over 36,000 nonprofits in Wisconsin alone. And these are only the ones that we can count. Organizations that have a revenue of 50,000 and below don't report the same way. So all of those really small, grassroots, volunteer-led community organizations are out there, and we don't know how many there are. These are only the ones that make 50,000 and above. It has grown continually here in Wisconsin for the last 20 years, and that follows national trends. As you can imagine, since the 1980s, the government started removing itself from social services, and the nonprofit sector has stepped in. And so unless there's a major political change coming, that's going to continue. And the nonprofit sector will become more and more integrated into what we do every day. In Wisconsin, the majority of them are human service organizations. These are homeless shelters, food pantries, Habitat for Humanity, for example, those organizations that really help people out of difficult situations, and education. Those are private schools. It's also adult literacy programs and the like. So that's kind of a snapshot of what's out there in terms of the Wisconsin nonprofit sector. There are all kinds of organizations, all kinds of missions, but this is kind of what stands out. Next. Going on, now let's talk about a little bit of information on where the challenges for them are. We do a lot of different research projects and surveying of nonprofits, not just in Milwaukee, but around the state. In 2019, we did a survey asking nonprofits what their primary needs are, what are their challenges. And the most important ones here are going to be the orange bars. And you'll see number one is fundraising over there on the left. It's always going to be number one. We even joke about not even asking about it because we always know it's going to be number one. But number two, interestingly enough, is marketing, promotion, the need for that kind of public education and outreach. Though that's one of their biggest challenges. So then this last year, go ahead and click it again. I forgot, I put an arrow in there, and one more. This is also to talk about advocacy and public policy. There's a big concern about nonprofits lobbying. That's the public policy issues. But nonprofits are allowed to advocate for themselves. And that equates to public education about their mission, about the people they serve, about the ways that they are integrated into the community. They just can't sway somebody's vote in a public election. So that's the difference. I just want to clarify, because they're in some ways tied together with that marketing and promotion piece. Okay. And so last year, as you can imagine, during the last year and a half, the nonprofit sector has been hit very, very hard in being able to connect to its the people it serves, let alone the staffing and social distancing and all of the things that we've all had to experience. So we spent surveying them on a kind of a multi-year project, trying to see what we can do to help. And the most important bars here are, again, going to be the orange, because we looked at initially in spring when everybody got hit, blindsided by it all, and then in the summer once the shock and the fear had died down and people had found workarounds. Go ahead. And we found that, again, no surprise, fundraising is number one. But number two is sharing real-time data about nonprofit needs. And that's tied over there with effectively sharing your message. Again, after the fundraising, in order to pay for everything, it's all about promotion and education and making those connections with your broader community. Go ahead. So let's talk about that, how we might approach that. Some of this is going to be preaching to the choir, I know, because you all know this far better than I do. But I want to kind of give you the nonprofit organization's perspective to maybe give you some idea of how those connections might happen. What we tell them in our educational efforts is that it's a gradual approach. You want to, first of all, get their attention, get the community's attention, get the attention of potential volunteers, people you might provide services to, and then actually kind of make that connection and get their names, get their contact information, all of that, and then get your message out there and engage them and really start a conversation. And then ultimately you need to inspire them to believe in your mission, to believe in your purpose and how you're affecting the community. There are these 5 different topics for nonprofits that are going to be their ultimate goals in any sort of community outreach. They want to grow their brand. They want to get their name out there. They want people to know that they exist so that their services can be taken advantage of and that communities, individuals like you and I, can donate to them or perhaps volunteer time. It's that awareness. Secondly, they want to promote the mission. They want to make sure that people understand that there is this need, this challenge that needs to be addressed. And then drilling down a little bit in fulfilling that mission, there are going to be specific programs, different ways that they go about doing that. In terms of community awareness, that's the advocacy piece that I mentioned, talking about general public education, not specifically about that organization, but about the bigger problems that exist in the world, whether it be homelessness as kind of a broader lens, or maybe some of the, what am I trying to say? The basic causes of homelessness, because there are many. But then again, using that as a tool to really bring the community out, engage them and bring them out in support and a call to action to be a part of the solution. Okay. Now this is, I'm definitely preaching to the choir here. You all know that visual storytelling is far more effective than just reading text, right? Pictures, images, videos are far more effective. It's just the way we are wired. But again, we try to really push this out to nonprofits to make them understand the value of visual storytelling, because it's not something, quite frankly, that they're used to. They don't necessarily have the resources. Social media, we are always getting asked for social media training. How do we do this effectively with a limited staff, limited budget? I teach a course in social media for community organizations, and it's kind of amazing how little people understand about the value of visual images and film as part of promotions. Go ahead. Oh, thanks. And in doing that, obviously, there's the potential there to really drive emotion. You all know that, I know that. A lot of nonprofits don't think about it because they're too busy in their day-to-day. Go ahead. All right, so let's talk about how we might actually do that. Nonprofits, a lot of the funders, the foundations that are providing money, are really pushing nonprofits to collaborate. There's this age-old argument that how many is too many nonprofits, right? My personal belief is as long as there's a mission out there, there's people to be served, there are not enough nonprofits to take care of the problem. But they want to see that collaboration to reduce duplication of effort and to ensure that all of the funding is being utilized in the best way possible. And so what we talk about in making these kind of partnerships is ensuring that everybody gets a fair say, that all partners are treated equally, and in terms of marketing, making sure that both parties can bring something to the table to help that promotional piece. In terms of the fundraising, because let's face it, there's always a bottom line, a dollar sign at the end of it. What we like to tell them is that both parties whether it's two nonprofits, whether it's a community media organization and a nonprofit, need to look at their top 3 priorities, whether that be mission-focused priorities or perhaps fundraising priorities, and try and focus on that to help really fine-tune your efforts so you're not just kind of scrambling and trying to merge in so many different ways. So I guess the big takeaway here, and I'm almost done, I promise, is that I particularly see a huge opportunity for community media to reach out to the organizations in your area. And trust me, if word gets out that you're doing this, they will come to you in terms of helping them tell their stories. Whether it be a video that they put on their website to introduce people to the organization, whether it's interviews of people that have received their services and proven a successful track with that, or even just little bits of visual content for social media. All of that makes a difference, because I can tell you that very few nonprofit organizations are doing this kind of thing, and they want to. When I was first contacted about this, I thought, well, this is a no-brainer, because there are partnership opportunities ripe for the picking for content that will enhance both sides of this discussion. So that's it. That's my part of this. My friend Dan here is actually going to take us into the practical aspects of this, as he does, to some degree, some of this already. So.
Good morning. I just rewrote my presentation listening to Bryce's thing. Bryce, or could you put up your slide that showed the first bar chart? Yeah, can you? The first bar chart. And actually, the thing just before it, what really struck me was, how many of you remember how many community-based organizations are in the state of Wisconsin that have over $50,000 budget? Did you pick up that number? How many?
26,000.
How many? 36,000. And every one of those are trying to figure out how to get their message out. And I think what I want to connect with that is
it this one that you
yeah, is that it? Yeah. I retired from UW-Milwaukee after 39 years of working in community organization, and adult continuing education. And most of my time was in the neighborhoods throughout Milwaukee, and I was partly connected with Extension, so I had statewide roles and stuff. But I worked with these folks, but I never did any video. Never. First time I picked up a camera to do anything other than shoot terrible vacation pictures, was as I was about to retire. I did a little documentary of my father's World War II experience, which was pretty interesting, but that's not what I want to talk about. The fact is, I did this, recorded his stories, which I had learned over and over again, having been raised by him, but I fell in love with the camera. I said, my God, this guy, his life experience, and it was about the war. Then I figured, okay, now that I got the video, I have to edit it. Didn't ever do any editing, so I had to teach myself the editing. And I actually fell in love with that too. I said, wow, this is really interesting. And I started having frustration that I didn't integrate this into my work at the university, and waited until I retired. So what did I do after I retired? I played with the camera and played with editing. I had a network of contacts throughout the city, and I started to really pay attention to what they do. Advocacy and public policy activities. I knew what they were doing, but now I'm looking at it from a different perspective. And I was absolutely in awe. These folks, these activists, are producing high quality, well-researched, documented discussions, policy advocacy that is fundamentally informative. They're advocating their positions, but the content and the work that they put into producing their activities is staggering. And you know what I'm talking about. They'll have a panel discussion on some public policy thing, or they'll put together a news conference on some issue. And then they go around and they get all their people lined up to be on the panel or to give a little presentation at the news conference, or they're out protesting on the street. All of that is great video material. But what really struck me was the high quality of the product that they were producing. And I said, I'm there. I started videoing this stuff thinking, well, if they put this kind of effort into it and 20 or 30 people are in the room listening to all of this, my camera could be a microphone for them. I thought, this is something I can do. And got excited about it and just started videoing all these presentations. I chased them, but they didn't know I was doing any of this stuff. And I chased them and said, do you want me to do this? I'd like to do that. And they thought, sure, why not? What they wanted was news media to be present and to then do I don't know even what the term is, a 1 minute little blurb on the evening news. They put all this time and effort, 20 people in the room, so that local media would give a minute or so in passing. And I'm saying, I'm recording the whole darn thing. What I realized was they're still in the old days, where get that little soundbite, when in fact they're really producing high quality product, but they don't have a plan. And worse yet, I didn't have a plan. I was still learning the camera. I was still learning the editing. I'd spent ungodly hours learning the editing thing. I didn't have a plan in terms of what or even a vision of what my role could be with the camera, with some editing. They're seeing me as a person not only capturing it, but they're expecting that I would broadcast it. Can you imagine that? They thought it wasn't enough just to video and edit, and I'd give it over to them. They didn't have a clue what to do with it in any really thought out strategy. They thought I was going to market it for them. So this was really a learning curve for me. So that's where I'm coming from. You want to see a little sample of my work? It's on the contract.
You want some audio with that?
Yeah. Please, I'm talking on it.
Which one is it?
It's,
Is it this stuff?
yeah.
We're gonna use the
Don't play it right away. Oh, I'm going to get audio. I did this video Tuesday, so I thought I'd give you something fresh. I did another one on Monday, but this one was more current. I get called up and asked if I could come down to City Hall. There's a news conference that the churches in Milwaukee are putting together, and that's about as much as I knew. So I go there with my camera. Bryce, that's my camera. Okay, talk about that. So I had to make sense out of what's going on without having any idea what's going on. Does that sound familiar? Okay. Here, this is only 3 minutes, folks.
It's just searching.
This is classic. This is what happens. It's not worth this time.
We got visual.
Hi folks, Dan Folkman with Community Rising, and I'm downtown Milwaukee in City Hall at a news conference that's being produced by a whole network of city churches. And they're talking about and now explaining to the public that they're being taxed by our local government, our city government. They're coming in and the taxes can be as many as tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm sort of stunned here because I thought churches were tax exempt. What's going on here? And we're going to learn a lot about the issue today. And I think we'll be talking about it for some time now because I'm just actually shocked and surprised. And stay tuned. Thank you very much.
My name is Stephen Tipton. I'm the pastor of the Church of God in Christ, 5401 West Good Hope Road. We're here today because what happened to me back in September was that the city of Milwaukee took my church and they put us on the tax roll. And they put us on the tax roll. There was no reasoning with them. They said that a letter was not given in time. And so they took the property and assessed us with a large amount of money that we had to pay. And they, not only that, but they foreclosed on the church and took the church out of our name and put it in their name. And I was concerned about that because I never heard of any such thing. And the fact that we tried to get the information, and to this day, I have not received any court summons. I haven't received any information regarding the taking of our church. It was taxed and then the church was taken. And so we're here to say this has to stop. This has to stop. It need to stop immediately because some of the ones that you see behind me and is going to speak are already on the tax roll again. They already got letters in the mail, a bill in the mail for large sums of money that they must pay to the city of Milwaukee or they will be foreclosed on. And you're going to hear from them on today. And so we want to thank God for all of you. We don't want to waste any time, but we want you to hear some of the stories that's going on with ministries that are trying to help the community that are being targeted and hit for taxes. And so here we are at City Hall to let it ring out in the halls. No more tax and take.
So that's what I did on Tuesday morning. What do you think? I'm there, and I'm thinking, what's going on? All the questions that are in your mind, I said, this is programming content. This is fodder for what could follow if there was a strategy that I had as a producer to then build a series of discussions or what have you, elaborating on this issue. And there's a lot of questions, pros and cons with that. But I thought, this is what I encounter all the time out in the community. And I'm now part of Wisconsin Media, Community Media. I'm an independent producer. And as my little bio pointed out, I'm needing now to think about how to add to my video production capability, the kind of organizational capacity that would truly provide a service to our nonprofits. And I've done videos both on the red and on the blue side. And I'll tell you, panel discussions and small group discussions, it's hard for me to differentiate if I didn't know if I'm in a room with all blues or all reds. Can you believe that? And they're talking about their issues from their perspective. I'm in one presentation. You can imagine what side, what color am I? Which color do I lean on? Blue. I lean blue. I'm videoing this conservative group talking about voting rights, and I'm saying I could be in a room with everybody liberal. This is so much in common that I started really paying attention to that overlap space. You got those two Venn diagrams, red, blue, and then the intersection. I think that intersection, right now we visualize them as separate and warring. But if you step into that potential overlap space, I've learned a lot by doing that. How many of you have heard the Braver Angels? One. Did I get two Braver Angels, right? I find out about this group, Braver Angels. They've been around since maybe 2014, 15, the national organization. I'm blown away about how well organized it is. And their mission is to purposely construct programs and trainings that would be delivered and work through and engage with people who are espoused red or blue. And their mandate is to produce a program, but you've got to have half of red, half of blue. And when I joined them, and I became a participant in one of their local organizations in Wisconsin, and I've been now engaged in discussions with Braver Angels on things like abortion. These are hot button topics. And the idea is, can red and blues talk about these issues in some kind of productive way? Gun control, redistricting and gerrymandering. I mean, you name the hot button, and I've been part of a red-blue discussion. And what I've noticed was they're civil, they're, I'd say polite, but also inquisitive to learn about their own positions and those of the other side. And it's genuine. And I'm saying, well, this has got to be a source of material for video. And then the old academic in me started thinking research projects. That would guarantee nobody showing up, but that's another story. This group that I've been participating in with, they're really in Madison, and everything has been Zoom because of COVID and all that. I connected with a southeastern group of Braver Angels, and I started talking with them about doing a series of programs, because I said, we've got to show people how the dialogue actually works. Not only what is said, but how it works, and how people process their contribution to a hot-button topic. How they frame that in the heat of the discussion as they're sitting at the table. I said, man, this is good material. So now I've got, be careful, you might get what you asked for. Because suddenly everybody thinks, now I'm going to go and put this together. But I really do. I've got a small group of people active in Braver Angels, red and blue, here in southeastern Wisconsin, they're at least politely intrigued with the idea, and one or two of them are saying, well, maybe if we learn a little bit more, they'd work with me. And I say, well, you know, I'm a independent producer, and I've confessed to Mary over there, I said, I still haven't figured out what that means and what I do and what I could do and how would I interface with the community, you know, really physically, practically, and productively. So I'm here to just say, this is an idea. I think it's got a lot of potential. So that's where I am. I'm going to stop talking and maybe we get some discussion, pros and cons, nuts kind of stuff. But please, Bryce and I want to hear from you, and let's see what the little conversation we have in the time remaining.
I do want to clarify the issue that the gentleman was talking about in the video because it drove me nuts, just as the nonprofit geek. We were talking about this beforehand, that in case any of you were actually wondering about this, we strongly suspect that the churches that were involved there had not submitted their 501c3 nonprofit status paperwork to the city in time, and therefore that site was taxed, because normally nonprofits and churches as nonprofits are exempt from property tax. He had one statement in there about paperwork, and that leads me to believe that he didn't get the papers in on time, and so there's a big snafu about administrative process and all of that. I don't know, I just had to clarify that and get that off my chest, but as Dan said, we've got a little bit of time, but if there are any questions or discussion, love to hear from you. Or we can sit and stare for 5 minutes, yeah.
You mentioned, I think that you teach a social media class for nonprofits.
Yeah.
Is that something, can you talk about a little bit more about that? Is that a one-time thing? Is that a multi-week thing? Or?
This is a graduate course,
Okay.
just full semester as part of graduate studies. And we talk specifically about community building using digital media. And we talk communications theories and all of that, but then also the practical applications of reaching out to various communities and what is attractive, what creates attention in terms of, we push the whole visual media thing, visual storytelling, before we get into like the technical aspects of just day-to-day management of social media using news aggregates and different platforms and things like that. So I don't know if that answers your question.
So it's a graduate level course
Yes.
for, okay.
Yeah, we have, as I said, we have graduate only education at UW-M. We also do a lot of non-credit education, so we do have, some fundraising courses that are free, all virtual now. We have more in the pipeline. But that particular course is an online, fully online graduate course.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Question here. Do you have an idea of budgets that nonprofits have? Because a lot of them that come to us are already wanting the nickel and diming, and I'm sure that's happened to all of you.
And I guarantee you that will happen every single time.
So are you teaching them or teaching about better budgeting or
Yeah, in fact-
just a general summary, what would you say about budgeting?
Yeah, I mean, as part of our programs, actually this semester, I'm teaching a course on revenue diversification, just to help them manage finances better. For the most part, fundraising isn't number one for no reason. It's always going to be an issue. And, as I said, the nickel and dime thing is always going to be a conversation. But that's where the collaborative effort comes in, where, as long as it's very clear that both parties are bringing something of value to the table, it's not, and I say value, it's not always money. There's human resources that always get kind of forgotten about in that mix, as well as technical tools and all of that. So, I mean, I don't know, there's not a real easy fix for that. There are more and more foundations out there are moving slowly away from grants that specifically focus on a mission. And they're moving to what we call general operating expense. In fact, during the pandemic, a lot of the reason that the nonprofit sector in Milwaukee survived as well as it did is because a lot of the foundations that saw the insanity going on and said, well, all that programmatic funding we gave you, you can use for general operating expenses. And what I'm seeing is that they learned something from that. It's like, oh, we open it up to general operating and the programs are still running just fine. They forget that that general operating piece is a part of the whole program pie. So we think that they've learned that, and we may see more of that moving into the future. So funding may loosen up a little bit.
Hi, Mike Mosner from Lancer Community Media in Washington, D.C.
Great.
There are a host of really great examples of partnership programs that have succeeded within community media and the nonprofit sector around the country. They really haven't been gathered together in sort of like one place. I'd be happy to talk with you more about sort of building something that's sort of like a playbook on this, because it ranges from everything from a daily talk show in Boston, where Boston Neighborhood Network basically gives the mic over to one of the tens of thousands of Boston-based nonprofits to talk about their social mission and to take calls from viewers. Like it's a daily talk show, right? So which is actually a pretty easy thing to do if you have the capacity for it. To folks that have organized sort of classic public access around reaching out to organizations with volunteers, because television is a multi-person activity, and you need to have bodies historically to do community-based shoots, to more sort of consultative partnership programs where the community media organization is less sort of like, here's the things that you buy, and is more like a consultation partner as the organization, as the nonprofit is trying to figure out how to use media to build its mission. So I think it's like this range of possibilities that we just haven't tapped. And we haven't actually built sort of like the playbook for that. We've used sort of like one model for how access organizations work, and we just assume that everyone will use the same model, which is, I think, not correct, because even if you look at Wisconsin, if there's more than 30,000 nonprofits, each of them has a different sort of practice, different sets of people, different lived experiences, different cultures. It's hard to have like one solution for all of them.
Yeah, and I would say too that to be very aware that urban nonprofits, like the largest density in Wisconsin is here in Milwaukee, understandably. Compared to rural nonprofits, very different beast, very different operating styles, very different budgets. There are some I forget which one now, there's one county that has no registered nonprofits, way up at the top, up north. So there are very different communities out there working in very different ways, trying to get out the same kind of message. And I'm personally not as worried about the urban nonprofits, because they're really kind of linking arms right now to really make a difference and get themselves out there. It's the rural nonprofits that are outside of Madison and Milwaukee and perhaps Green Bay that are having much more of a difficult time in terms of just staying afloat and creating that awareness, especially now.
I just had a couple things. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned that some of your graduate students do go out into the community and get experience in the community and do some of these sorts of projects.
Service learning projects.
Yeah, could you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So most universities do this to some degree. We work exclusively, our programs are exclusively graduate. It happens on the undergraduate level on every campus in the UW system, where students, as part of their work, will, in our case, go out to a nonprofit, connect with them, and work on a course-based project in collaboration with them. So they're learning theory in the classroom and the practical application. So for example, I always use this in our fundraising class as an example. They'll work with a nonprofit development director or the executive director to learn what that organization is doing in fundraising, and then at the end of the semester provide them an assessment based on what they've learned in class and what they've seen in the organization. And it's up to the organization to use it or burn it or whatever they want to do, but it's part of the way the students can learn that practical application, and in many cases, the nonprofit actually gets kind of pro bono advice. So we do, I would say half of our curriculum includes that piece.
And I just want to say to Dan, you know, the thing that occurred to me about what you were doing there, it's almost like you are developing a brand of your own. And if you came up with like a series of programs where you were interacting with the Braver Angels or any of these nonprofit groups that you cover, and it's your spin on it, not necessarily your spin, but you're the guide, you know, into what's going on out there. I think a series like that, it seems to me, could be very appealing to a lot of our media centers, because it would be a way for a lot of our centers to access these groups through you, through your mediation. You become a trusted source. You know, it wouldn't be a lot of this one and that one and that, you know what I mean? It would be, they know what the product is if you kind of establish a brand like that. So that's what went through my mind when I was watching you work, and I think it could be really, really effective.
Yeah, I personally think that there's a lot of exciting developments that can happen out of this kind of a relationship. Sorry, I butted in. I interrupted.
Hey, no, that's very good, thank you.
Anybody else? Oh.
Just one over. I think one more and then we have to wrap up. Am I right? Yeah.
This is for Dan. I was wondering if you pull videos from, or do people submit videos to you, the same kind of a thing? And then as far as you going out like to this thing in Milwaukee on Tuesday, are people contacting you and saying, hey, here's what's happening, can you be there? Or are you actively seeking out, like, where can I go, what can I do, that type of thing?
All of,
Should work.
is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the above. So I get calls, and the Tuesday was a call. Monday was, I knew the person, so he called me again and asked me if I'd do a thing for him. But what Mary is saying is exactly where I'm at in terms of taking this video work. As I said, they expect me to be able to do the packaging and distribution. And I'm saying I need a network of partners and figuring out how to take what I'm doing. And I totally get the message. I got to be trusted. This is contested territory, and being 501c3s and the like, I'm really very sensitive to all of that. But if our communities are going to be able to have a voice that's heard, and if I'm going to be part of that, I'm challenging myself to develop that kind of capacity. And I'm reaching out to you. I said, help me understand what I need to do, how to package it, how to work with you, so that together we can put together, I think, a great series of public education programs in this highly contentious, almost vicious partisanship. There's common ground there. I know there is. I've been part of it. And I think it would be mind-blowing to be able to have a network of organizations like you helping educate the public in terms of this is the only way we're going to get through this terrible situation that we're in.
Dan?
Yeah.
Dan, my name's David. I am a manager for a city PEG channel. As an independent producer, I have a two-part question. One is, how do you get your credibility to go to some of these events? I have a gentleman just like you that likes to do these, but some of the places won't let him in. How are you doing that? Or have you had a problem or not?
I had 39 years of working in the community, so I'm not unknown. So when a lot of people were surprised, you do video work? So I had a network of contacts. A lot of them in Milwaukee, but statewide. But I reached out to them. I called them. I said, you got a program going, you mind if I come in and video it? Then they say, well, how much is it? And I said, this is my advocacy, I'm not charging anything. So sometimes I'm forced to take some money, but I know the budgets of these organizations. And I've also learned that if I get with the organization in time when they're writing their proposals for next year, they can build you into their proposals. But the credibility, I'm a known entity. I work with them. What you're asking, I think, is a very important question, and that's really part of what I've been doing. I retired back in 2011. So all the work that I've done, I'm bringing forward to take my work and my partnership with the organizations and hopefully this relationship into something that's productive and politically appropriate and sensitive to the issues of nonprofit, 501c3s, and the like. Did I answer your question? Okay.
You answered part one, and you started to answer part two. The second part of the question is, as an independent producer, how are you getting paid? You've already told us that you are advocating and you're not getting paid from these organizations. And I know the producer I'm thinking of, he's always trying to get paid, and he's trying to think of ways to do it, and I don't think you can have your cake and eat it too in a case like what you're suggesting.
I've got a partner, several of us form our little group. My background is education. This other gentleman that's part of the group, he's a retired producer, TV producer. He's got 7 Emmy Awards of production. He's doing a lot of video work here in the Central City. He's getting some pay for that, which is really great. But I'm thinking, well, the network that I have, and I'm just one of the little group. We can really bring capacity to and experience, broadcasting experience to our productions. And so another partner like me, he's had a history of education in the vocational schools. And so he and I are educators. Matt is the video Emmy Award-winning producer. We've got a couple of other people that are just interested. So I think we have the capacity to bring something together. Well, we have to prove our mettle. I've got to be able to produce something, find an outlet that'll take the risk, and build it from there.
I know we're about over time, but I wanted to throw out too, in terms of payment, what you'll find a lot of nonprofits will do, bringing in an outside agency to work for them. You can write up a grant. There are foundations out there that actually will fund this kind of thing. It's up to the nonprofit to write the grant and to get you as an outside agency or consultant, a contractor, to get that fee, incorporating it into the grant. The question is just finding the right pocketbook to reach into. And so with that, I think we should wrap that up. Mary's fidgeting over there looking at her watch. So, but thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.